Hey everyone, it's Chris and welcome back to the Ridge. Today, we're just talking about our Harman P61 pellet stove. It's been our only heat source for years now, and we really depend on it to keep us warm through these snowy Appalachian winters. So we thought we'd share how it's been for us, the good, the bad, and whether we do it again. So if you've been thinking about getting a Harman pellet stove, maybe this will help. Join us!
SweetMapleRidge Farms. Come on down, everybody. Go!
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for watching, liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. And a big thank you to our junior, mid, and especially our OG Maplers who continue to help take our community to the next level. Now, today we're going to talk about our Harman P61 pellet stove. And I got to tell you, there is a lot to like about this thing. There are also a lot of drawbacks. So in this video, we're going to talk about those. And hopefully this video isn't like 39,000 minutes long. So we're going to try to keep it short. And we're going to fire it up for you for the first time this season. Hasn't been lit since around these parts. We run it until about the end of May. And it's the beginning of October right now. So it's a little late actually. But we're going to start it up for the first time this season. And time it to let you know how long it takes to get it started. But just a couple things about the pellet stove, and Miss SweetMapleRidge, feel free to jump in at any time. We've had this stove since August of 2022, and we did have it professionally installed. We paid right around $8,000 for it. That included the install. We got a tax credit. This was back in 2022. We got a tax credit right around 30%. With the state, I think we got right around $500 or $600 off. We paid right around $4,800. But again, that was in 2022. So, policies have changed since then. And we had to prove that we had a wood stove that we swapped out for this stove, which we did. So Harman is a top tier pellet stove. I don't think there's any question about that. I think their motto, it's built to a standard, not a price. So these are expensive, but they are built to last. So just a little bit more information about this. Obviously, these run on pellets. You have to buy pellets. We buy them by the pallet. The pallet costs right around $320 with tax. Pallets are 2,000 pounds, or the same as a ton. The pellets are 40-pound bags, and you get 50 on a pallet. We go through, we're in zone 5B. We get right around 120 inches of snow here per year. We go through between 2 and 2.5 pallets of pellets per year. So that's like 5,000 pounds per year. Okay, we're going to get into the positives first with the Harmans. Then we're going to finish off with the negatives, and we're going to light it up for you, and you'll get to see exactly what we're talking about. Before we get into that, we'll give you just a couple stats about this stove, and we'll just do a quick once over. So here in the top is where the pellets go. This holds 72 pounds of pellets, so roughly 2 bags. Over here is the temperature controller and all the controls. So this is the thermostat. This is the fan speed. You can set it to go at a constant, or you can set it to be at a room temp. Up here's the feed limit. We don't mess with that. The igniter, we don't mess with that either. And then you have power and status. And a couple other lights here. So that's good stuff. Getting into the stove here, we have the heat exchanger baffles up at the top. This is where the pellets come out at. You can see we got this thing cleaned pretty good last week. We get this cleaned about every 2 years. Holes here, the air comes out, all the pellets, and the igniter happens down there. Here's the ash pan. We empty out the ashes about once every month or two, depending on how much you're burning. Now, we go through about 2 to 2.5 pallets of pellets per season. We have this thing going. This is our primary heat. This thing goes from September all the way through just about May. So we really use the heck out of this thing. And like I said, we empty this about once every 1 to 2 months. Bringing on down here at the bottom, this is how you empty out the ashes. So I'll pull this out for you. Here's the blower and all this stuff down here. Okay, and coming out the back here is the thermostat. It's important to point this out that this is what comes with the stove. This is maybe 5 feet long. It comes out of the back. I know that you can get this hooked up to a thermostat, a temperature control, kind of like a Nest thing. You can see there the connection, but that's how it comes stock. Okay, we're gonna start with the positives first. First, obviously, the quality. Harman is a top-tier pellet stove. There is no way that you're probably going to do any better than a Harman. So you're going to pay, for the quality with this stove, but you're also going to get that Harman reliability. So that's why we chose this Harman. I also will point out we had a Harman Allure 50 at our previous house, and we love that thing also. Okay. Next, it does light quickly and easily. With a pellets or with a wood stove, you got to deal with kindling and starting the fire and saving newspaper and all that stuff. You don't have to do any of that with this. So it's perfect for busy mornings or when you need to increase the temperature of your house.
I was just going to mention that I think pellet stoves are particularly convenient during like the shoulder season, because I grew up in a house with a wood stove, and I can't tell you how many times my dad wasn't willing to start a fire because he was like, well, but it's going to get warm during the day, so just put on a sweatshirt. And with a pellet stove, you're never doing that. You really have the convenience. If you want to run your pellet stove, just turn it on and you'll have heat. And then once it gets warm during the day, you just turn your pellet stove off. There's no waiting for it to heat up or cool down. You just turn it on and turn it off. And I really like that convenience.
Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is just the what I would call the effortless ambiance. It does create a nice ambiance, the same as a wood stove would, except it is super easy to deal with. You do get that cozy fire look and feel that we all love, but there's not a lot of hassle with it. Next, I do want to point out that this thing runs on pellets. Obviously, you don't have to deal with propane or natural gas, which, obviously you're going to avoid the risk of like any sort of leak or explosion, which, that kind of stuff does happen. You have to be careful with, propane and gas like that. You're not getting surprise fuel bills. We've all heard about those people who get propane delivered and it's like $800 or something crazy like that. So the good thing with this is that you're paying for the pellets up front. And that's it. There's not going to be any mystery heating bill. And Mrs. SweetMapleRidge, you pay the electric bill around here. When this thing is running full tilt, do you notice a difference in our electric bill at all?
I will say that our electric bill is very consistent all year, meaning that when we have the air conditioning running in the summer and we have the pellet stove in the winter, I don't notice where one is more expensive than the other. But we certainly are not seeing spikes in our energy usage during the winter.
Okay, next I want to talk about just the thermostat control. Over here, you can set it and forget it. You can set it to a temperature and it will hold that temperature, or at least the temperature that's around the thermostat that I had pointed out. And it definitely keeps the house more consistently warm, I think, than a wood stove, and it saves pellets by not burning constantly. So when it gets warm, the pellets slow down, and when it needs to heat back up again, obviously it starts feeding pellets again, and that's done automatically through the computer in there. Next, we want to point out that when you're buying these pellets, they are going to be dry. They're ready to burn versus like in a wood stove, you could get firewood delivered or go to cut it down. And, maybe you're dealing with wet firewood, or you're dealing with wood that is dry firewood, but we all know that there are certain firewoods that burn better than others, that put out more BTUs. So with pellets, there are better pellet brands than others, but generally speaking, they are standardized for the most part. And so you're not going to have to worry about, pellets not burning or anything like that, like you would, in a wood stove.
You don't have to be years ahead. With firewood, typically when you're splitting firewood, you're splitting wood for a couple of years in advance. When we run out of pellets, we just go buy more pellets. If you run out of firewood for the season, you might not be able to get good dry firewood. If you do, you're going to pay for it. So there is more of a convenience because you're not dealing with time if you go and buy pellets that are ready today.
Next, I just want to point out that, yeah, and firewood, that means cutting, hauling, stacking. The pellets come neatly on a pallet. Some people like stacking firewood, other people, don't. I like stacking firewood if I'm not on like a time crunch, but if I don't want to have to do it because I have to do it. I want to stack firewood because we're going to use it to make maple syrup, and sort of the stakes are low. And yeah, you can pre-buy the pellets and store them. You can store them for a year or more. We've bought too many pellets and we burn them the next year, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah, the unused bags roll into the next year if kept dry. And then also, I like the fact that this is one of my biggest things I like about this pellet stove is that we pay for the pellets up front. We literally pay our heating bill up front. So paying up front means pretty much no monthly heating surprises. I also want to point out here that it burns cleaner and there's less ash. Like I said, we're burning this thing almost 24/7, and we empty out the ash pan about once a month, once every 2 months. Clean house. We're not dealing with dust from a wood stove or ash or anything like that. Wood stoves can be really, really, really messy. So we're not dealing with any of that. And then, of course, the tax credit that we talked about. All right, guys, first light of the season. We're going to go ahead and light this thing up, and then we're going to talk about the negatives. And Mrs. Sweet Maple Ridge is going to start the timer when I hit the button, and we are going to show you how long it takes to light this thing up. We have pellets in here, so we're going to go ahead and turn our knob. We're going to set this at like 70, 72. And we're going to turn our knob, the room temp knob, we're going to turn that on. That's going to activate. You can hear this starting to rock. While this thing is going, we're going to talk about some of the negatives. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We really appreciate it. Okay, obviously the first negative is this doesn't burn firewood. You have to buy pellets for it. So that's a plus for me because I don't want to deal with firewood. But that's a negative for some people, especially preppers who potentially they don't want to have to deal with buying pellets in a situation where maybe in the future you can't get pellets. And without pellets, this thing is pretty much a paperweight. So an expensive paperweight at that. So that's something that I want to point out. Number two, the bags are heavy, 40 pounds. There are heavier things, but a log weighs a lot less than 40 pounds. So if maybe you have, knee problems or leg problems or whatever, shoulder, and maybe you're not able to carry a 40-pound bag, but you're able to carry a log or two, that's where a wood stove is probably going to be beneficial. But, a wood stove puts off a lot of ash, so now you're going to have to empty that thing out a lot. All right, number three, the noise factor. I'm going to stop talking for a minute and let you hear what this thing sounds like. I think that's one of my points. I'll just mention it now. If this thing were to break, you're calling somebody. You're pretty much dead in the water because you're not going to fix this on your own.
Yeah, and anything that has computers and electronics and sensors, there is an opportunity for failure that you're unlikely to be able to correct yourself.
Okay, maintenance and cleaning. This has to be clean. You have got to clean this. You cannot leave this thing and just let it get dirty and dirty and dirty and dirty. You have to clean it.
On the inside of the hopper lid, there's a maintenance schedule, so you're not doing everything all the time. Yeah, so that's what you should do daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly.
Yeah, and so the daily maintenance is to scrape the burn pot. It comes with a little tool to do that, and you're just scraping it to where those holes that we showed you don't get clogged up. Now, weekly it says to empty the ash pan. We don't do that weekly. We probably should. And then there's a couple other things. But the monthly maintenance, you definitely don't want to skip because it will cause it to fail to light, and you don't want that. And I also want to point out that this stovepipe here, you're also not going to clean that thing out because there's sensors in there, and so you just can't run like a brush or something down in there because you're going to damage the sensors. All right.
That was 7 minutes.
7 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so 7 minutes to light up. Okay, so another thing about this is obviously it needs electricity. It's not going to run during a power outage unless you have a generator. I will show you the generator that we have right here, and it runs this thing perfectly fine. So you're definitely going to need a generator, though, if you want this thing to run, even during a power outage. Okay, guys, so this thing is getting going, and you can hear the blower really starting to kick up. Now, like we said, this thing is intelligent, and the blower is going to kick up once the fire gets to a certain temperature. Now, Mrs. SweetMapleRidge is going to talk about the blower.
Yeah, so I think that the blower, the noise of the blower is a bit of a negative, but the fact that it has a blower is positive because, again, if you're familiar with a fireplace or a wood stove, you generally have to have some mechanism to move the heat around. But this thing having a blower, it does push the heat away from the stove, and we have no problem with it heating our entire house. Granted, our house is 1,500, 1,600 square feet. It's not a big house, and it's all a single story. So maybe that's why we have such good luck, but this thing has had no problem keeping up with the heating demands of our house. We're never cold in the house unless we want to be. And something else that I want to point out that we haven't really talked about, if you notice, this stove is really close to the wall, and we don't have a hearth behind it. There's not like concrete board behind it, it's just the regular drywall wall. And the reason for that is because the way that these pellet stoves are designed, you don't need the clearance like you would with a traditional wood stove. And where the firebox is, like where the actual fire is, if you touch the side of that, I mean, it's hot to the touch. I mean, it's not going to burn you, but it would be uncomfortable. But where the hopper is, so where the pellets are and like where that control is, that's completely cold. There's no heat coming off of that at all. And that top is never going to get hot enough. You're not like cooking on it like a wood stove, which I think does make it a little bit safer.
Yeah, this is hot to the touch, and I'm not going to keep my hand on there like that. But you could never do that with a wood stove. Not to interrupt you. Sorry.
Yeah. If you have if a wood stove is really going and you touch it, you're going to burn your fingerprints off.
All right, so Miss SweetMapleRidge, will we buy it again? I got a heck of a reflection on that thing. So would we buy this again? What are your thoughts?
Yes, we would. I would advocate that we would buy it again. I really like the pellet stove. Again, I grew up in a house with a wood stove.
So did I.
And I just find this to be so much more convenient. you know, and it takes a lot of the pressure off in the summer months to make sure that your firewood's taken care of. If you're retired and you have all the time in the world, maybe having firewood ahead of time is not that big of a deal. But you know, we both work full time, and that can be a lot of work to try to keep up with. However, I will say, I do not believe that you should have a pellet stove as your only heat source.
All right, so that's it. That's the video. If you want to be an OG Mapler like these amazing folks listed here, and you want to continue learning how to rely less and create more from high atop the Allegheny Plateau, please like and subscribe. And guys, we'll see you next time out on the ridge.